The very heart of a mission such as QVSR is about looking after people. Sometimes just having someone to listen to your story is very important. We've just been a charity that's had that time to listen to people's story and then to be there for them. We did something very radical. We just asked the seafarers what they wanted. They said, we don't want ship's bells. We want to get away from the ship. We asked them what they wanted to do, so we thought we would bring London to them.
So welcome again to another Women in Ports vodcast. I'm very happy to be here in a very busy port of Tilbury at the Tilbury Seafarers Centre and welcoming Alex Campbell, Chief Executive of the Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest. I'm so happy for you taking your time to join us.
It's good to
Alex,
be here.
Thank you. And for those of our viewers who may not be familiar with the work of Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest, or QVSR, do you mind to maybe explain a little bit about the history, the core purpose, and how your activities still bear relevance to modern times?
Thank you. QVSR, as we term it, because Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest can be a big mouthful for people, has been in existence since 1843. So this is our 102nd year of providing welfare services. Our work is very much based in the East End of London, which of course was the Port of London. It's now Canary Wharf and it's got all these high-rise buildings there. But at one point that would have been an area full of ships and cargo and dockers, and you can imagine all the smells of the docks there, and it's just a really fascinating place. I think going back probably 150 years, there was said to be about 100,000 people milling up and down East India Dock Road, and so it's into that background that QVSR, Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest, came to be. And we were there to look after the welfare of seafarers. And in those days, it was a very different world then. And as part of the Methodist Church, this was set up to look after the moral needs of seafarers. And so there was an ability to proselytise back then. And so often when seafarers had milled up and down this road, maybe spent all their money in the various hostelries and maybe spent some money on having company, etc., they would turn to the missions, and QVSR was one of those missions. And we would just offer the seafarers somewhere to come and rest, and that hence the name Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest, and also to consider maybe their spiritual well-being. So we would bring them in, we would clean them up, we'd give them some clothes to wear, we would give them something to eat, but then often it would, at that time back in history, would be about going to a prayer meeting or a Bible study, just to point them in the right path. So yes, it's very much historically was about looking after people, maybe saving them to some extent from themselves.
So but, it's a spiritual intervention.
Yeah, but very much about people. And I think it's said, isn't it? I think William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army, talked about soup, soap and salvation, and you couldn't really help someone if they were hungry. You couldn't help someone if they needed the dignity of being cleaned up. So again, I think at the very heart of a mission such as QVSR is about looking after people, their physical needs, their basic needs, and then maybe turning to their spiritual needs. And I suppose 180 years on, things haven't really changed. We may do it in a very different way, but we look after people. We look after the seafarers by providing practical things such as Wi-Fi, connection to Wi-Fi, money exchange, etc. But we're also there on hand if they have any spiritual needs, just to, through our chaplaincy, just to be there to speak to them and to offer them some advice or some guidance if that's what they want. So, but the very heart of our organisation is people and trying to make a difference. I think in this world we live in, life is very chaotic. We're caught up in a lot of busyness, and just being an organisation that's there with a heart and an ear that wants to listen to people. I think that's really needed in this busy life. We talk about well-being and mental health, and sometimes just having someone to listen to your story is very important. So I think we've done that for 182 years. I think we've just been a charity that's had that time to listen to people's story and then to be there for them. So yeah, we hope that we'll be around for another 182 years doing the same.
Excellent. I mean, what a real sense of community and bringing people into a community, albeit temporary, for the duration of their stay. That feels very part of what you do. Is, as you say, people, and bringing them into a place where there's comfort, there's support. So what drove you personally to become involved in an organisation that had that sense of community and welfare of the seafarer at the heart? What was it that brought you to QVSR?
I think, again, probably for me, my faith background, my church background makes me want to do a job that makes a difference. And I've always worked for Christian charities, and as I say, QVSR is part of the Methodist Church. So wanting to make that difference in people's lives. My background has been working with homeless people, so about looking after people who need to have somewhere to stay. And I think it's kind of been that journey that's taken me to QVSR, because the building in East India Dock Road has accommodation for 190 men. It's historically been men we've looked after, but because of some of the developments, we've been able to now open that up to female seafarers as well. So accommodation for 190 people who, without the mission building being there, wouldn't have anywhere to stay. And so that was a very temporary accommodation. The seafarers would come into the Port of London. They would, at that point in history, come off the ship, and the dockers would then unload the ship and load the ship. So seafarers would have maybe about 5 or 6 days in port. And so the Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest became almost a ship on land where these seafarers could come and be there. As time has moved on, the use of that kind of facility has changed. We've grown to accommodate more retired seafarers, those who finished their life at sea. We talk about seafarers often being married to the sea, and some of those elderly seafarers we have now didn't invest in relationships. They maybe had a girl in every port, but they didn't have somewhere where they would go to once they'd finished their time at sea, and so they came to live at Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest. I remember a story I heard which really touched me, and it was the master on the Gloriana. He was dealing with some of the activities to do with the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, I think, at that time. And I was at a function and he was there. And I remember speaking to him, and he asked where I was from, and I said, QVSR, Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest. And he said, I know about you. And I said, oh, how do you know about our work? And he said, well, I used to be a master on the merchant fleet, and often when the seafarer presented their seaman's book, and a seaman's book was a passport to everything that was advantageous for a seafarer, when I would open the seaman's book, it would say in there, next of kin, Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest. And again, it just reiterated that point that seafarers often don't invest in those relationships. They don't have somewhere to go when they hang up their kind of seaman's kind of rucksack. And their plan for retirement was to come and live at Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest. And so many of them do. We have a building that accommodates for retired seafarers, and we look after their needs and their welfare.
Almost like the Chelsea pensioners type.
Yes. And it's often been described as that, as the equivalent. We also look after veterans as well as seafarers. We feel that there's a real compatibility between veterans, and often veterans charities look at merchant seafarers as part of their community as well. So that works very well in that we're able to look after those people in those circumstances when they've just got to the end of their career at sea or their career in the forces, and they find themselves needing somewhere where they feel they belong. And we like to reach out and offer them that home. Excellent. And look after their needs. So that real sense of community there with our residents who live there.
A real lifetime service that you provide, isn't it? From the start of their career to potentially the end of their days, really. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think the building on the Dock Roads been there since 1901. We got a charter to name it after Queen Victoria, hence the name Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest. But our work in seafarer centres such as Tilbury here has been a relatively recent happening. We needed to look at what kept us being a seafaring charity, and as the number of retired seafarers was reducing, we were thinking about what is our future, what in our very DNA is looking after seafarers. And so in 2016 we got the opportunity to take on this fantastic facility here at Tilbury, and this has been a real journey. We came to a building that was a little bit bland. It kind of lost its way a little bit. And we did something very radical. We just asked the seafarers what they wanted. And then,
it's always a good start.
Yeah, and then asking them what they wanted, they said, we don't want ship's bells and we don't want life rings. We want to get away from the ship. We don't want to go to something that looks like a ship and land. And so we were able to take on board what they were asking for. And we asked them what they wanted to do when they came off the ship. And they said, we'd like to go to London. Now, ship turnarounds now are sometimes very short, sometimes 6 hours in terms of their time in port. And so we thought we would bring London to them. So we call this London Tilbury Seafarer Centre.
Right.
If you ever visit, you'll see lots of art that depicts London. There's red telephone boxes. There's Big Ben. This behind us isn't New York. No, it's a London skyline, and it allows them in this very modern age to take selfies and to be just part of being in London, sending back to their family in the Philippines or Indonesia, and just saying, I'm in London, and that almost fulfills that need to be somewhere. So it's really about, we would say the message is about actually listening to the seafarers, find out what they want. Another thing we have at this fantastic centre is a basketball court and a football court. And again, that came out of seafarers really demonstrating that was a need. There was a ship that was going to be berthed here for around about 9 months, and the crew had begun to make their own activities just to kill the boredom of being in port. And they attached a basketball ring to the side of the ship, and they put some netting to stop the ball going down. And they were playing basketball with these large lorries, juggernauts going past. Awesome. And we said, we need to do something about that. Yeah. So we worked with Forth Ports. We got a piece of land beside the centre, and we now have a basketball and there's outdoor table tennis, and there's a little golf putting area as well. Great. So it just allows seafarers to just have a moment to relax and unwind.
And that really, one of the questions that I really wanted to explore with you was about how you maintain being relevant to your customers, for want of a better word, for the seafarers, and how you evolve with modern times. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really. You ask them and you say, what is it that you want? And you mentioned earlier, when we were talking about your base in East London, how you had recently been able to accept female seafarers. And I'm just interested to understand about the specific support or challenges that might have brought you, and how you've been able again to adapt to the role of women in the maritime industry. Yeah,
I think that we acknowledge that the numbers of women working in the merchant fleet is quite small. And I think that's remained quite static for a period of time. And we would just want to be part of that bigger picture that says that it could be a positive career choice to go to sea for a female seafarer, and that there are setups such as Seafarer centres here in the UK and around the world that want to listen to their voice, want to meet their needs. And so I think that's very important. It's about listening again. We need to be in a place where we are open to what changes need to be made. We're very aware that a lot of things that are designed and created are designed with a male kind of focus. And we've found in recent times, we've been part of helping people campaign, particularly in the seafaring world, for female seafarers to have PPE that fits a female frame. And you have this ridiculous thing when you come across, particularly a merchant female seafarer, that they're wearing this jacket that's about 4 times too big and tripping over the trousers, etc. So there's a need to really make adaptation and adapt to making the industry a place where women feel there's a place for them. And so, we would want to be part of that campaigning. We would want to be part of providing that welfare. I think one of the really positive developments has happened in recent years, and I think QVSR was at the very front of that, is the introduction of female chaplains. So there probably has been this image of a chaplain being an elderly man, maybe someone of the church, and often having beards. And again, how do seafarers, the modern seafarer, relate to that? And many of those chaplains were wonderful. But just by being able to introduce some female chaplaincy, it's a very different dynamic. And particularly for a female seafarer, they see someone that they recognise and believe that maybe is able to help them meet their needs. So we're, with the female chaplaincy and with listening to the voice of the female seafarer, we're able to, I think, make a lot of progress in recent times to meeting those needs. So listening is a very important point. In our accommodation, we've become more and more aware of female seafarers who've finished their time at sea and are now at home, and their marriage breaks down. And in that moment, where are they going to go? And just being able to offer accommodation at QVSR is really important. And I've had a couple of conversations. We probably are that really emergency part of it, that I need to get out of the house now. I need to go somewhere. Where can I go? And being part of the Maritime community, we could offer that immediate accommodation. We might not be the right thing in the next week or the next month, but in that moment of just needing to get away from that situation, we want to be part of being able to offer that service. So it's just being able to be there and to be responsive. Be responsive. I think if there's anything, it says it on our website. QVSR never stands still, and I like to think we are an organisation, a charity that's adapting and changing. And as I was saying before, 2016 we took on our first Seafarer Centre here at Tilbury, and then by 2022 we were able to then adopt into the QVSR family Seafarer Centres at Immingham up north and Bristol and at Felixstowe. So we've expanded our work, and we probably welcome around about 40,000 seafarers a year into our Seafarer Centres, and we provide them with those very basic things that they need. Free Wi-Fi, money exchange, the use of some recreation facilities, singing on the karaoke. There's lots of social media posts of people singing on the karaoke. A bar where they can have some refreshments. We had a really interesting situation where at Bristol we weren't allowed to have a kind of conventional bar where we could sell Guinness and beverages that seafarers would want, and we weren't allowed to provide alcohol beverages, and so we kept trying to get round this. And if you go and visit Bristol, which I would recommend, there is a bar there that says, it's called the Dry Dock, which is very appropriate. It's a 0% alcohol bar, and it says probably the only alcohol-free seafarers bar in the world. So we try to find ways of just making the facilities we provide relevant to seafarers.
And in such a relatively short period of time as well. I mean, that's 9 years. In 2016, that you've provided 11 seafarers centres.
I think we feel this is part of what the offering we have. We've always been about service, and we recognise that maybe the seafarers are not coming off ship and maybe needing the temporary accommodation in the same way, although we've had around about 40 seafarers need to use those kind of temporary services of the East India Dock site in the last 6 or 7 months. But we feel that we need to be reaching out to do what we can, and we think part of our kind of DNA is looking after seafarers, and looking after them in centres such as this is a great opportunity to do what we do.
So Alex, you described the really extensive offering that you provide to seafarers at all stages of their career. I just wondered, particularly around Christmas, and I know Christmas is a big thing for QVSR and its activities and the way it gets local communities involved with its activities. I just wondered, are there any particular stories or messages that you have or you think about, particularly pertinent to Christmas, that really reiterates the purpose and affirms for you why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I think Christmas is a really important time for charities such as QVSR, because it's at that point I think we can, probably on behalf of the wider population, say thank you to seafarers. We use now commonly within the charities a term called sea blindness, and the reality is that ports and seafarers are no longer relevant to people out there in the wider community, and so they just don't really recognise the value of ports. I think it really hit home during the pandemic, where seafarers were made key workers because they were really vital to what we do. And the reality around Christmas is we wouldn't have our Christmas without seafarers. We open our gifts and we enjoy our foods and our goods, and that's really because seafarers have brought them in via sea. For us, we just take an opportunity to say thank you by giving each seafarer, where we can, a Christmas gift. And that gift is nothing elaborate. We did that very radical thing. We asked seafarers what they wanted, and they told us they wanted things like hand cream, because again, life on board a ship can be really quite difficult and your hands can become chapped and hacked. So they wanted hand cream. They wanted just simple things like toothpaste, toothbrush, deodorant, definitely a woolly hat, because if you come from the Philippines to Tilbury in November, you probably need more than one woolly hat to wear to keep you warm. But just giving that gift just said, we really appreciate what you do. We really value the sacrifices that you're making. Some of these seafarers are away from home for 9 months. So just to say to them, we appreciate the sacrifice you make to allow us to have the privileged life that we live. So here at Tilbury, and we work here in the Port of London with Tilbury, with the very large, the largest container port emerging at DP World, further down in the Thames here. And we also work with a new, what we call a cruise crew lounge at the London International Cruise Terminal. And between all of those, we try to distribute 3,000 Christmas presents to seafarers. And it's an amazing operation. The manager here starts almost in June getting that ready and just being prepared that each seafarer can receive a gift. I think the story that really hits me about that, there was a seafarer a few years ago, and he took the time to write and tell us what happened. And it was almost Dickensian. It was almost what something from A Christmas Carol. Yeah. And this seafarer was in port, and it's unusual that they're in port on Christmas Day. They're normally out at anchorage. So these seafarers would normally open these presents in the middle of the ocean. But he was in port here at Tilbury, and he was very far from home. His family was back in the Philippines, and he just felt sorry for himself. He wasn't working that day, so he decided just to pull the duvet over him, and he was just going to spend the whole day in bed feeling sorry for himself. And then he saw his present, and it was almost an epiphany moment. He suddenly looked at the present and thought, someone's taken the time and the kindness to prepare that gift for me. And he talks about opening the gift and feeling very emotional about it. And almost, I just imagine this like Ebenezer Scrooge in Christmas Morning. He said, no, I'm going to go down to the Seafarer Centre, and I'm going to be part of that positive Christmas kindness and that Christmas spirit. And so he came in here, and he just helped and was part of being part of the fun and activity here in Christmas Day, all because of that Christmas present. And I think for many seafarers, it'll be the only Christmas present they get. And it's really important that we, on behalf of everyone, and it's very much a community, and lots of people get involved. The local mayor comes in, the local MP, lots of different groups, the Port of London Authority, Trinity House. There's a whole army of people wrap these gifts with love and kindness. But it just says to the seafarer, we value you, you're important to us, and we recognise that our Christmas wouldn't happen without you giving up your Christmas and your family. So it's a very, very special time. Probably between Felixstowe and Immingham and Bristol, we probably give out around about 10,000 presents as part of a wider maritime community looking to serve seafarers. If I turn to, I've got a lovely story with one of my retired seafarers. On the whole, these are really humble people. They don't ask for a lot. They don't expect a lot. And I remember going up to one of the gentlemen's rooms and at Christmas time, and he had 7 Christmas cards. And I said, oh, I like your cards. These are lovely. Can I have a look at them? And when I looked at the cards, there was 7 cards there. He'd stayed with us 7 years. And these were our cards. He'd put up year 1, year 2, year 3. It was the only Christmas card he got. Probably the present we gave would be the only present he got. And I think it's in those moments it reminds you that what may seem a little gesture is really quite an important one, both for the active seafarers in the ports and for the retired seafarers in our accommodation service. So Christmas is a time where we can just reach out and say thank you.
And you can really make those seafarers feel acknowledged, because as you say, however hard the conditions are, knowing that you're appreciated and know that you're seen, maybe that's one of the few benefits of the COVID pandemic was this sudden realisation, certainly within this country, I think, that the seafarer is there servicing our needs, and without them, our community, our society wouldn't be as well funded or as well serviced as we like it to be. So an amazing acknowledgement. How wonderful.
I think it's the pandemic brought a lot of things to light, and its attitudes towards seafarers. I mentioned earlier that they were recognised as key workers, but one of the real challenges was to get them vaccinated. And this centre here at Tilbury was number 2 in the world for vaccinating seafarers. Really? Absolutely a mammoth effort went on from here. And the different layers of that story, our chaplain, and it was one of our female chaplains, Ruth, was looking to get the seafarers vaccinated and went to the local NHS team who who, again, see blindness, didn't understand the port, didn't understand seafarers, said, no, we can't do that. And again, she is one of those chaplains that doesn't take no for an answer. So she went back again and said, no, you must vaccinate seafarers. They're part of what you should be doing. The teams then said, but what if the seafarers run away when we're trying to give them the vaccination? Again, just showing the lack of understanding that seafarers are welcome to have shore leave in this country and welcome to enjoy the facilities that are in this country. And that relationship developed to the point that the NHS team were coming to the centre here and doing the vaccinations. And that was a real breakthrough, and I think probably one of very few centres where the NHS team were coming in. But they then went further and they said, why don't we go and do the vaccinations on the ships? And so they went onto the ships, the chaplain and the NHS teams, and again, we were number 2 in the world. Only Houston Seafarers Centre in Texas did more vaccinations than were done here at Tilbury Seafarer Centre. So it just shows you that seafarers are important, and it's important that we recognise them as being key workers in this country.
What a fundamental, essential service that you're offering in doing that. And like you say, a groundbreaking move for the NHS to then start going onto the vessels.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work we do is about relationships with the port, relationship with the other charities, trying to really embrace relationships with the local community. Again, they don't really connect with ports in the way that they once did, and maybe we need to try to make that happen again. And as I say, at the very heart of that is listening to the seafarers. The area we're sitting in just now is what we call a 24-hour room. So back to that listening to the seafarer, when we took over in 2016, one of the things they said to us is we need the centre to be open when we are needing it. And so it may be 3 o'clock in the morning, but that might be when a seafarer's family is going to school, and it might be a time when they want to talk to their family. And historically, the centres had closed about 10 p.m. So we created these facilities, and we have them in all our centres, which are called 24-hour rooms, where a seafarer can come in here at any time. He can access via a code to get into this area. The heating is on, and the facilities are here. There's a TV, there's a vending machine, there's always tea and coffee there for the seafarer. There's free Wi-Fi, and it just allows them to have these facilities when they want to have the facilities. It's great also for crew changes. If there's a crew coming in to relieve another crew, the lounge is here. They can sit in the warmth and be part of having these facilities. I often say there's a clue in the name. We call these seafarer centres, and indeed it is their space, and we need to have that attitude that it is their space, and so we want it to be the very best for them and the very best facilities.
To actually meet their need as well, the things that they actually need. And you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about your activities being people-centred. And I think it's about people in a community, whether that community is the community here that they find when they visit, or that your activities are actually setting seafarers in the wider community and giving them a context and making them feel acknowledged and understood and appreciated. So that's a really important role as well, I would suggest.
Yeah, I think education, just raising awareness. We try to do that at the very early stage. So if we ever get a chance to go and speak to school children, we want to do that. We want to tell them about the sea, about seafarers, about the history, about the future, and even encourage them towards considering it as a career choice. I know the PLA, the Port of London Authority, we work very closely with them. They give us an annual grant to do the work we do, but I know they're really committed to looking at a life at sea as being a career path that young people can choose. And certainly our experience of seeing people who have chosen that as a career choice, it can be a really positive choice. I don't think they used to say, join the Navy, join the Merchant Navy, see the world. I don't think that is necessarily the case now.
Yeah.
You probably get to see lots of ports, but certainly seafarer centres and charities such as QVSR, I think, are here trying to make that life at sea, which can be difficult at times, a really positive choice for people.
Excellent.
And I think our message to everyone, particularly this time of year, is you couldn't have your Christmas without seafarers. They are absolutely essential to what you do.
Excellent, excellent. And so that's your message to the wider community. What would your message be? What would a message be that you would give to seafarers, particularly at this time of year? Long way from home, it's Christmas, in regard to what you do and what they can find with you here. What could you say to them that might give them some comfort and inspiration, a bit like your chat with the present on Christmas Day?
I think and it's an old-fashioned word, but I think it just says that we care. And I think the remarkable thing in doing the Christmas presents is that when we say we care, it's a very wide group of we, a very wide community group. So often seafarers come in and they see the parcels being wrapped. They understand that we have this thousands of woolly hats that knitters, different knitting groups are making all the time. I think it's just giving them that message that although you may feel quite isolated and lonely and away from your family, that there are a lot of people in this country and other countries around the world who really do appreciate what they're doing. And that's why that person is knitting your hat. That's why people are gathering to get together toiletries. And these projects start throughout the year. So people, although it may feel the focus is at Christmas when you get the gift, these projects are being planned and progress is happening through the year. So you really are, you really do matter. You are really cared for and you are really appreciated in the work you do. I think we need to just be there saying thank you to seafarers at this time of year and throughout the year. And I think really our seafarer centres are a big hug around them because they are really a place where they feel that they belong and that they are. I mean, the reality is that often seafarers find it hard to fit in when they have shore leave. There's often limited time, there's often limited places that they can go to. So having a centre that's quite close to where they come off the ship, we provide transport to get them to the centre. We'll also take them into the local town or the local shops if they need to. It's just knowing that someone's there for you, and QVSR and many of the other missions are just there for you. And that's the message really. We are there for you and we're there to listen to your needs.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Alex, I'm just amazed at how much information you've been able to, and great examples you've been able to convey over the last 20-30 minutes, and thank you so much. And also I'm really fascinated by your female chaplain Ruth, who sounds like a powerhouse and an amazing female role model that we perhaps could speak to on a future podcast. That would be great to explore.
Yes.
So again, thank you for your time. I'd just like to finish up by asking you one last question. If you were to describe in 3 words what QVSR is and what it means, what would those 3 words be?
I think it's, for me, hope, and I think hope is a word that people need to have hope, don't they? They need to know that what they're doing matters, and so we just want to be about hope for them. We bring them hope and we try to look after them. I think, although it's again an old-fashioned word, I just mentioned it before, is that letting them know that people care for them and that we really care for them. We understand them. I think that's a big part of a life at sea. It's when you come off that ship, knowing that someone understands the reality of what that is. That you may be on there with people all speak different languages. You might be on there feeling you don't quite fit in. There's been a lot of work done about well-being and mental health, and also diversity as well. So we just need to, they need to come off the ship knowing someone understands and that they can speak to them. And I think the other word for us is just faith. Our faith is very important to us, and I think for seafarers, a lot of it may be superstition as well, but wrapped in that superstition is faith. And I think probably if you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you maybe in that moment be aware of a being higher than yourself. So we want to be able to help them practice their faith, to meet in our chapel, to pray if that's what they want to do. And just, I think all of those things kind of roll together, that there's hope and there's care and there's faith together, which it just gives them a message that a Seafarer Centre and an organisation such as QVSR understands them and wants to help them as they journey with their life at sea.
So once again, Alex, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule in this Christmas period to talk to us and to share your experiences. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. And just to say to our viewers, wishing you all a very peaceful and relaxing Christmas period, and we'll see you again very soon.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.